Hello, my friends. I hope that you are all having a wonderful day today. For me, I am getting started on my drawing for today for Inktober, and I did want to share this part with you just because it's an interesting little pattern that I'm going to be using, and it is based on something that I drew in a previous project. So I think it was for the 100-day project. And what it is it's something that I draw inside of a circle, and I'll show you what it looks like right now. It almost has this look almost of a pineapple or a pine cone, and I didn't really think about it at the time. I was just kind of thinking more along the lines of like scales, like fish scales or dragon scales. But this is what I'm going to be showing you how to draw today. It's surprisingly intuitive, but I will explain to you what I mean by that as I get started here. I'm going to just be using the corner of my page since I do want this drawing to kind of layer, and I want it all to grow from one of the corners. So I'm just going to be selecting a circle from here, and so I'm just going to place it onto the corner here, just using my pencil. Of course, I just want to do a sketch at first. So there's the circle that I'm going to use, and just getting in a little bit closer right here. I do want to identify the direction in which I'm going to essentially grow those scales. So it's in this direction, like that. And I'm going to end up erasing that, so you don't really need to worry about that. You can draw an arrow if you want or not. So what I'm doing here is I'm including these kind of arched lines. And I'm going to draw a handful of them in this direction. So there we go. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So there's 5 of them. Let me draw 2 more. 6 and 7. So I have 7 lines. You don't have to use this number. That's just what I ended up having. You can do more, you can do less. It's up to you. And so let me straighten it out this way. And then I'm going to recreate those lines but in the opposite direction. So I'm going to use that initial line, which was I think number 5, and just going to kind of mirror it in the other direction, so like that. So there's that one, which means I need number 2, 3, 4, and 5. And it doesn't need to be perfect. 6 and 7. It can just be pretty close. It's fine. And so this is the foundation that where I'm going to make all those little scales. But first I'm going to add something in real quick, and I'm going to have this go by quickly because I don't want to draw away from the main concept here. Is I'm really just adding another design in front of it just to kind of, in a sense, hold the shape. And so just doing that really quickly. And there we go. Now I'm just going to erase some of those lines. I don't need them anymore. So again, this is just like a little pattern or a little drawing that I like to do, just to add a little more interest to some things. And now that I have it cleaned up, now I can actually start adding in the ink onto this. And where I'm going to start is close to what would be the base of this. So this would be, for me, on these lower shapes. And personally what I like to do is as I draw these curves, I want to round off that tip. So right here, it's rounded on the top. You can see that. Rounded, rounded, just like that. You can leave them pointed if you want and just see how that looks. You may like it. It's up to you, really. Just when I draw these, I round off those corners, those little tips at the ends. So there's the next layer, and I'll just keep going. And essentially I'm just heading upward, adding those layers. And you'll see on the edges, all I do is just follow the edge of the shape, which in this case is just a circle. And I just add each one. I would like you to notice that each time that I add one of these, they don't quite touch at the top of the curve that's below. So like right here, these didn't touch. Same thing here, they're not touching. They're just slightly apart from each other. And if you draw them differently, it's fine. That's just something that I like to do. I like to separate them just a little bit. So right there, and the next one is slightly apart from it. That's all. And the fun thing about this one is that you can use this on any shape. So just draw yourself a different shape as long as you add those initial pencil lines in a similar way. You should be able to do this just fine. So as I'm reaching the end here, because it is a bit tight there, I'm just going to kind of add a few as I see fit. So here I'm adding these 3, and I think I still have a little more room, so I'm going to add 2 more. And there we go. I think that should be enough for the end. So you can see it's fine to kind of go outside of the line or just adjust it as you see fit. So this looks a lot like a pine cone. I love it. It looks really nice. So I'm just going to clean it up really quick, and then we can move on to adding a few more details just so that it looks a little better. And what I'd like to do first, in order to add the details, I usually like to just switch to a smaller pen. And what I'm going to do is work inside of each one of those little scales, or whatever we want to call them. Inside of each one of those, we're just going to add another line right underneath that main curve. So just like that. And you can play around with maybe breaking the line so it isn't continuous, or maybe just doing dotted lines or anything like that. Feel free to play around with that. In this one, I'm just doing a simple curve that just mimics the one above it. Just like that. And by using a smaller pen, it makes sure that I don't lose the definition of those initial lines that I'd made. It's just a little bit better that way. When I do those shapes on the edges, I also make sure not to do the entire curve, since the idea is that those scales on the edges are kind of vanishing along the edge. But it's okay if you just do it normal. It's not a problem. So there we go. There's the last few. They don't need to be perfect either. There we go. And the next thing we can add to create a little bit more detail is going to be just a few little lines like this. And I'm just going to add 2 more. So it's just 3 lines. I can add more. For example, if you're drawing yours a whole lot bigger than this, you can add more lines and more detail. You could even add patterns inside of there. Just put lots of designs in there. That's up to you. So right now I'm just keeping it kind of simple. So it's just these 3 little lines. Just like that. And you can see it comes together pretty quickly. And each one of those little lines just gives it that much more detail, like so much nicer. And I do try to make sure that as I work my way around, if it looks like the shape is kind of slanted, then I try to follow that slant. And I will point it out as soon as I reach one. And because those slanted ones are usually on the edge, like that one. Or this one. So they're slanted. These are pretty straight right here. Just kind of straight up. You'll see that's a little slanted. That one's also a little slanted. And this one here, slanted. And all these on the edge are a little slanted. So that's a good way to make sure that it kind of makes sense visually. And there you have it, this kind of pine cone or pineapple or whatever. Maybe you want to make something that looks like it's got scales on it, some kind of creature. You can always use this technique. It's nice and easy, and it gives you nice, clean shapes. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you again soon.